Classification of communication. Organizational communication. We define organizational communication as the ways in which groups of people both maintain structure and order through their symbolic interactions and allow individual actors the freedom to accomplish their goals. This definition recognizes that communication is the primary tool to influence organizations and gain access to organizational resources. A. Internal versus external communication. Internal communication occurs within the organization, while external communication is between an organization and other organizations, customers, or individuals who are external to the particular organization. Internal communication networks are patterns of relationships through which information flows in an organization. Stoll, 1995, describes communication networks as capturing the tapestry of relationships, the complex web of affiliations among individuals and organizations as they are woven through the collaborative threads of communication, page 18. Communication networks emerge in organizations based on formal and informal communication. Stoll and Stoll, 2005. External communication must pass through the registry section, which keeps record of such communication. It involves communication with individuals and organizations outside our organization. B. Formal versus informal communication. Formal communication consists of messages that follow prescribed channels of communication throughout the organization. The most common way of depicting formal communication networks is with organizational charts. Organizational charts provide clear guidelines as to who is responsible for a given task and which employees are responsible for others' performance. Organizational charts demonstrate that communication can flow in several directions: downward, upward, and horizontally. 1. Downward communication occurs whenever superiors initiate messages to subordinates. Ideally, downward communication should include such things as job instructions, job rationale, policy and procedures, performance feedback, and motivational appeals. When abused, it can lead to dictatorship. 2. Messages flowing from subordinates to superiors are labeled upward communication. Obviously, effective decision-making depends on timely, accurate, and complete information traveling upward from subordinates. 3. Messages between members of an organization with equal power are labeled horizontal communication. Horizontal communication is important to organizational success when used to coordinate tasks, solve problems, share information, and resolve conflict. Horizontal communication receives much more attention in participatory organizational structures in which employees have more opportunity to formally participate in decision-making, such as quality circles or autonomous work teams. Informal, grapevine communication has no definite route of communication for sharing information. Information converges a long way by passing from one person to another, leaving no indication from which point it started. This is similar to the vines of grapes. This kind of communication is in the form of a. Office gossip involving telling a number of persons in one's group. B. Single standard office stories to a trusted colleague who in turn tells another trusted colleague, and so on. C. Probability. An employee may also become indifferent about whom he should pass the information to. She may pass the information to anybody around him who may be interested to listen. D. Cluster. In this case, the person who has the information passes it to selected individuals who also pass it on to selected individuals. In every organization, some people have good liaison with other persons. Informal communication is generally considered to be any interaction that does not generally follow the formal structure of the organization but emerges out of natural social interaction among organization members. Whereas formal communication consists of messages the organization recognizes as official, informal messages do not follow official lines. The concept of emergent organizational networks represents the informal, naturally occurring patterns of communication relationships in organizations. Suskind, Schwartz, Richards, and Johnson, 2005. Moreover, effective workplace communicators understand the nature of both formal and informal communication. Managers who take time to develop and listen to sources of informal information are better equipped to understand employees' attitudes and concerns. When entering an organization, such as when you start your first job, Asking other employees about communication practices is smart because you not only discover formal procedures but also make contact for informal sources of information. C. Intrapersonal versus interpersonal communication. Intrapersonal communication. Intrapersonal communication is the communication that occurs within your own mind. Interpersonal communication occurs when you evaluate or examine the interaction that occurs between yourself and others, but it is not limited to such situations. This form of communication occurs before and during other forms of communication as well. For instance, you might argue with yourself during a conversation in which someone asks you to do something you don't really want to do. Before you accept or decline, you mull over the alternatives in your mind. Intrapersonal communication also includes such activities as solving problems internally, resolving internal conflict, planning for the future, and evaluating yourself and your relationships with others. Interpersonal communications. Interpersonal communication is the process of using messages to generate meaning between at least two people in a situation that allows mutual opportunities for both speaking and listening. Like intrapersonal communication, interpersonal communication occurs for a variety of reasons: to solve problems, to resolve conflicts, to share information, to improve perceptions of oneself, or to fulfill social needs, such as the need to belong or to be loved. Through our interpersonal communication, we are able to establish relationships with others that include friendships and romantic relationships. Dyadic and small group communications are two subsets of interpersonal communication. Dyadic communication is simply two-person communication, such as interviews with an employer or a teacher, talks with a parent, spouse, or child, and interactions among strangers, acquaintances, and friends. Small group communication is the process of using messages to generate meaning in a small group of people. Brilhart and Galanes, 1998. Small group communication occurs in families, work groups, support groups, religious groups, and study groups.